Hello dear students. So here I am going to deliver a lecture on the topic Cancer, its types and treatments. This is a topic in context to the syllabus of BSc Microbiology. So before beginning with what is cancer, I would like to first of all emphasize on a very common term called tumor. What is tumor? A tumor is defined as a swelling or morbid enlargement that results from an overabundance of cell growth and division. Normally, cells grow and divide to produce new cells in a controlled and orderly manner. Tumors may be of two types, benign tumor and malignant tumor. Benign tumor is a non-cancerous tumor. It do not invade nearby healthy tissues or spread throughout the body. Malignant tumor is a cancerous tumor. These cells are abnormal and divide uncontrollably without order. These cells are often spread to and damage nearby tissue and may spread to other parts of the body, which is known as metastasis. And now we may move on to know about cancer. What is cancer? It is a term for diseases in which abnormal cells divide without control and can invade nearby tissues. Cancer cells can also spread to other parts of the body through the blood and lymph system. What are the basic differences between a normal cell and a cancer cell? Here in this diagram, we can see that under a microscope, normal cells and cancer cells may look quite different. In contrast to normal cells, cancer cells often exhibit much more variability in cell size. Some are larger than normal and some are smaller than normal. In addition, cancer cells often have an abnormal shape both of the cell and of the nucleus. The nucleus appears both larger and darker than normal cells. The reason for the darkness is that the nucleus of cancer cells contain excess DNA. Cancer cells often have an abnormal number of chromosomes that are arranged in a disorganized fashion. Based on some characteristics, we can differentiate the normal cell and cancer cells. The first point is growth. Normal cells stop growing when enough cells are present. For example, if cells are being produced to repair a cut in the skin, new cells are no longer produced when there are enough cells present to fill the hole, when the repair work is done. In contrast, cancer cells don't stop growing when there are enough cells present. This continued growth often results in a tumor. Next is communication. Cancer cells don't interact with other cells as normal cells do. Normal cells respond to signals sent from other nearby cells that say essentially you have reached your boundary when normal cells hear these signals. Next is cell repair and cell death. Normal cells are either repaired or they die. They undergo apoptosis when they are damaged or they get old. Cancer cells are either not repaired or do not undergo apoptosis. For example, one protein called p53 has the job of checking to see if a cell is too damaged to repair, and if so, advise the cell to kill itself. If this protein p53 is abnormal or inactive, for example from a mutation in the p53 gene, then old or damaged cells are allowed to reproduce. The p53 gene is one type of tumor suppressor gene that code for proteins that suppress the growth of cells. Next is stickiness. Normal cells secrete substances that make them stick together in a group. Cancer cells fail to make these substances and can float away to locations nearby or through the bloodstreams or system of lymph channels to distant regions in the body. Next, ability to metastasize or spread. Normal cells stay in the area of the body where they belong. For example, lung cells remain in the lungs. Some cancer cells may lack the adhesion molecules that cause stickiness and are able to detach and travel via the bloodstream and lymphatic system to other regions of the body. They have the ability to metastasize. Once they arrive in a new region, such as lymph nodes, the lungs, the liver, or the bones, they begin to grow, often forming tumors far from the original tumor. Next is appearance, which we have already studied in the beginning, that under a microscope, normal cells and cancer cells, they may look quite different. In contrast to normal cells, cancer cells often exhibit much more variability in cell size. Some are larger than normal and some are smaller than normal. Next, the rate of growth. Normal cells reproduce themselves and then stop when enough cells are present. Cancer cells reproduce rapidly before the cells have had a chance to mature. Maturation. Normal cells mature. Cancer cells, because they grow rapidly and divide before cells are fully mature, remain immature. Doctors use the term undifferentiated to describe immature cells. Another way to explain this is to view cancer cells as cells that don't grow up and specialize into adult cells. The degree of maturation of cells corresponds to the grade of cancer. Cancers are graded on a scale from 1 to 3, with 3 being the most aggressive. Evading the immune system. When normal cells become damaged, the immune system, via cells called lymphocytes, identifies and removes them. Cancer cells are able to evade the immune system long enough to grow into a tumor either by escaping detection or by secreting chemicals that inactive immune cells that come to the scene. Some of the newer immunotherapy medications address this aspect of cancer cells. Functioning. Normal cells perform the function they are meant to perform, whereas cancer cells may not be functional. For example, normal white blood cells help fight off infections. In leukemia, the number of white blood cells may be very high, but since the cancerous white blood cells are not functioning as they should, people can be more at risk for infection even with an elevated white blood cell count. Next is blood supply. Angiogenesis is the process by which cells attract blood vessels to grow and feed the tissue. Normal cells undergo a process called angiogenesis only as part of normal growth and development, and when new tissue is needed to repair damaged tissue. Cancer cells undergo angiogenesis even when growth is not necessary. One type of cancer treatment involves the use of angiogenesis inhibitors, medications that block angiogenesis in the body in an effort to keep tumors from growing. Now, as the rate of cancer increases, it is very important to know the factors causing cancer. There are several reasons, each contributing in its own way for the spread of the disease. But first of all, we need to know what is carcinogen. Carcinogen are those substances that promotes carcinogenesis, that is the formation of cancer. Substances are termed as carcinogens. And there are various factors which leads to the development of cancer. This may be the lifestyle factors and personal habits, radiation, viruses, and inherited cancer. So let's study them in details. The first point is lifestyle factors and personal habits. This is for those people who has a habit of consumption of tobacco and alcohol. For many people, smoking and drinking go together like bread and butter. But when it comes to cancer risk, alcohol and tobacco becomes a more volatile pairing. Tobacco and alcohol alone each increase the risk of several cancers. Combine these two habits significantly increase the risk of cancers in the aerodigestive tract, the lips, mouth, larynx, pharynx, throat, esophagus and colon. And the diet also plays an important role in causing cancer. Epidemiological and experimental studies suggest that a proper diet and a healthy lifestyle can decrease the risk of cancer by up to 70%. The cancers most closely related to nutrition are breast and endometrial cancers in women and prostate and gastrointestinal cancers in men. Many reviews outline that many antioxidants, vitamins, phytochemicals and other micronutrients in food have cancer preventing effects, while many food additives, pesticides, residues and high consumption of charbroiled meat, nitrites, salt, animal fat and trans fatty acids have been associated with increased cancer risk. Next is sunlight and radiation. Too much exposure to UV radiation from the sun or other forms of radiation like X-rays, gamma rays can damage the genetic material, the DNA in our skin cells. If enough DNA damage builds up over time, it can cause cells to start growing out of control, which can lead to skin cancer. The next important factor is virus. Viruses are very small organisms that can infect the cells of other animals or plants. Humans are susceptible to a large number of different viruses. Viruses are not the same as bacteria, although both can cause human disease. Treatments that cure bacterial infection are not useful in the treatment of viral infection. Viruses can disrupt cell behavior in several different ways. They can directly cause DNA damage, that is mutations, by inserting their genomes into the DNA of the host cell. The integration can disrupt important regulatory genes. The viruses may contain their own genes that disrupt the regulation of the cell. This process may be beneficial to the virus if it allows for rapid production of progeny, but can be seriously detrimental to the host. Some viruses actually carry altered versions of genes that they have picked up from previous host cells. These altered genes no longer function properly, and when they are inserted into a new host cell, they cause dysregulation and can lead to cancerous growth. Through their mutagenic activity or their effects on cell behavior, viruses play a role in the development of particular cancers in many different animals, including humans. Inherited cancer. Sometimes certain types of cancer seems to run in some families. In some cases, this might be because family members share certain behaviors or exposures that increase cancer risk, such as smoking. Cancer risk might also be affected by other factors like obesity that tend to run in some families. But in some cases, the cancer is caused by an abnormal gene that is being passed along from generation to generation. Although this is often referred to as inherited cancer, but what is inherited is the abnormal gene that can lead to cancer, not the cancer itself. Only about 5% to 10% of all cancers result directly from gene defects called mutations inherited from a parent. Now next, move on to types of cancer. Cancers are named for the area in which they begin and the type of cell they are made of, even if they spread to other parts of the body. For example, a cancer that begins in the lungs and spreads to the liver is still called lung cancer. There are certain clinical terms used for some general types of cancer. The major type of cancer are carcinoma, sarcoma, melanoma, lymphoma, and leukemia. Carcinomas are the most commonly diagnosed cancer which originate in the skin, lungs, breast, pancreas, and other organs and glands. Lymphomas are cancers of lymphocytes. Leukemia is cancer of the blood. It does not usually form solid tumors. Sarcomas arise in bone, muscle, fat, blood vessels, cartilage or other soft or connective tissues of the body. They are relatively uncommon. Melanomas are cancers that arise in the cells that make the pigment in the skin. Now, let's know about the cancer treatment. As we learn about the treatment, let's know about two very common terms that's used. One is oncology. Now, oncology is a branch of medicine that deals with the prevention, diagnosis and treatment of cancer. The second term commonly used is oncologist. An oncologist is a medical professional who practices oncology. Now, there are many types of cancer treatment. The types of treatment that we receive will depend on the type of cancer we have and how advanced it is. Some people with cancer will have only one treatment, but most people have a combination of treatments such as surgery with chemotherapy or radiation therapy. So let's learn about the types of cancer treatment. The first treatment is chemotherapy. This strong medication keeps cancer from spreading, makes it grow slower, or even kills cancer cells. It can cause side effects because it kills cells in your body that grow quickly, including those in our blood, mouth, digestive system, and hair follicles. There are over 100 types of chemo drugs. The doctor chooses the one that's best for the particular type of cancer. It may be taken as a pill or capsule, rub it into the skin as a cream, or get it as an injection or IV at home or in the hospital. The next type of treatment is external beam radiation. This treatment attacks cancer cells with high energy particles, that's proton or particle therapy, or waves like X-rays. It kills or damages cells in one specific area instead of throughout the whole body. The most common type comes from a machine outside the body. It's called external beam radiation. The next kind of treatment is internal radiation, more commonly called as brachytherapy. Radioactive implants about the size of a grain of rice is put inside the body where the tumor is. The radiation kills the cancer cell. This treatment makes the patient radioactive for a while, so he or she may have to avoid other people until it's finished. Next treatment is an open surgery. Treating cancer with surgery works best if we have a solid tumor in one area. It often can't treat cancer that has spread or cancer that's in our blood, like leukemia. The surgeon makes a cut in the skin with a scalpel or other sharp tool and removes as much of the tumor as possible. This may also take out lymph nodes and other tissues for testing. This is called open surgery. Next is minimally invasive surgery. The goal for this procedure is the same as open surgery, to remove tumors and also tissues and lymph nodes if needed. Here, instead of one large cut, the surgeon makes several small ones. They put a tube with a tiny camera into one cut to see the inside of the body and tools into the other. This is called laparoscopic surgery. It usually has a shorter recovery time than open surgery. There are a few other kinds of surgeries that are practiced in treating cancer. Those are cryosurgery. Here, very cold nitrogen or argon gas is used to freeze off the abnormal tissue. It can treat some early skin cancers, retinoblastoma, and precancerous spots on our skin or cervix. Another type of surgery is photodynamic therapy. It is a laparoscopic surgery that puts drug in near the tumors. Light activates the medicine and it kills cancer cells. The third type of surgery again is laser surgery. It uses strong beams of light to cut into our skin. It's good for very tiny areas. Lasers can also sometimes shrink tumors. Besides surgeries, stem cell transplant can be performed in order to treat cancer. There are cells in our body, in our blood and bone marrow that haven't matured into their final form. The doctors uses them to replace cells in the bone marrow that other treatments kill. That means we can get higher doses of those therapies. Sometimes stem cells can find and kill cancer cells. We get stem cell transplant through a catheter, much like a blood transfusion. The next treatment is targeted therapies. These are usually paired with other treatments. They are strong medicines like chemotherapy, but instead of killing all fast-growing cells, their home is on the parts of cancer cells that make them different from other cells. Targeted drugs do things like stop blood vessels from growing around cancer cells or turn off signals that tell cancer cells to grow. They can also tell our immune system to destroy them or change their proteins so they die. Next is hormone therapy. It is also called endocrine therapy. It targets cancers that use hormones to grow. There are two kinds of this therapy. One that stops us from making hormones and one that keeps hormones from working the way they should. It is either taken as pills or get them through a shot. Sometimes we may get surgery to remove an organ that makes hormone, like ovaries or testicles. Doctors use hormone therapy with other methods to shrink tumors before surgery or treatment, or to kill cancer cells that have spread to other parts of our body. It can also lower the chances that our cancer will return. The next is gene therapy. This treatment uses a special carrier, usually a virus, to put RNA or DNA into the living cells. The doctor will either remove some of our cells and put the genetic materials into them in a lab or give us the carrier directly. The changed cells then either kill cancer cells, slow their growth, or help healthy cells fight cancer better. Doctors don't use this method widely yet, but several types of gene therapies are available for certain diseases. The last kind of therapy that's used is immunotherapy. This type of biological therapy or biotherapy uses the immune system to fight the cancer. It either boosts the immune system or marks cancer cells so the immune system can find and destroy them more easily. It is given by mouth as a pill, into a vein as an IV, by rubbing a cream into the skin, or through a catheter directly into the bladder. So here this was a short lecture on cancer, its types and treatment. It's a vast topic, but I hope you all have got a basic idea of it. Thank you.